the thing is, when I opened the case, the guitar was amazing, but it's the first time I smelled an open case of a guitar case.
Yeah.
And, it smells like the wood, the varnish, especially the varnish for the Gibson. It's really like a special scented varnish. And the metallic strings, the fur, the synthetic fur of inside the case.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was just like amazed. It was like an addiction to it. And this is really like my first big scent experience.
Michael, thanks for joining us today. Super excited to chat with you about your background, your history in pharmacy, your history in branding for your scent room 1015, and really learn more about your musical background and how that's influenced your brand and your scent. So thanks for joining us today. I'm super excited. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy.
Let's dig in, if you don't mind. We're going to kick off and just start talking about your history a little bit. So Rodeo Massacre, I think, was the name of your first band. Is that correct?
Yes. Oh, it was not my first band, but that was the band that I was in when I moved to London. Yeah, when I tried to live out of music for a few years. So that was my biggest experience. Yeah, that was my biggest musical experience.
I love the band name. When I think Rodeo Massacre, I just think of like a bull thrashing like a cowboy in the air.
Yeah, we just chose this name. It doesn't mean anything. We are just like playing garage / psychedelic music. We just wanted a name that was like just cool and sounded good. Rodeo Massacre. It doesn't mean anything. Some people thought it's because we were vegan and we thought that the rodeo was not like animal friendly, but no, it's just Rodeo Massacre. I don't know why.
Yeah, I noticed you had a Meat is Murder tattoo on your arm. That's really cool.
When did you see that?
No, I did a little bit of research, so I saw photos of you online.
Okay. Yeah. That's, meat is murder. Then you choose if you want to kill or not. It's I don't try to convert anybody to it.
No, it's good. My first thought just goes to Morrissey from the Smiths. That was one of his biggest themes of Meat is Murder. He's lots of photos of him wearing that T-shirt.
Yes, but I didn't do it for the Smiths. I just did it for my convictions.
Yeah, so cool. Cool. How old were you when you started to play in Rodeo Massacre?
I believe I was 20 or 21. I don't know. I don't remember.
That's probably the age. I've been in some bands too. I was about the same age. I started playing guitar in high school and started being in bands about 20. We were playing more like shoegaze, like Cocteau Twins.
That's
type
cool.
Of music. Yeah,
cool. Before that, I was playing hardcore.
Oh yeah, cool.
Like Minor Threat and all this.
Yeah, nice.
So I had my years of playing in like venues that were like mostly squats and like strange places, and where you play this kind of music. It's not like on big stage. It's just like, but it was fun years. It was really cool.
Yeah, I know it's such a big part of who you are and the brand. For me, I have these distinct memories of being like 7, 8, 9, and my dad playing like Buddy Holly and Rolling Stones and Joan Jett and the Go-Go's and like all this music. So music for me was really embedded early in my life. Since it's so much a part of you, when did you start feeling like it was a part of your life? How young?
Well, I remember clearly the first. So there is two things. There's I wanted to be a guitarist since I was 6 years old, and that just came, I don't know, out of nowhere. Basically, it's just I wanted to play guitar, and I don't know why. Maybe because my uncle was playing guitar, and I heard him play, and I liked it, but I had this really strong passion growing for the guitar at the age from 6, But my parents didn't want me to didn't want to buy me a guitar. Probably they didn't have the money. I don't know. So they just wanted to be sure that I would commit to it. So that's why I waited until the age of 11 to start. But my first moment where I knew I wanted to be a guitarist, I wanted to be a musician, and I started to really enjoy to discover music and have an interest for music. That's when I discovered Guns N' Roses in the 80s, basically end of 80s with Appetite for Destruction. That's really a turning point of my life, basically.
Cool, I love it. And do you remember distinctly then the turning point from music into making fragrance? Like, we're going to go into your history a little bit about pharmacy and all that, but like, what was the turning point where it's like, I want to now take my passion for music and create my own brand of fragrances? Like, when did that happen? When did that start to happen in your head?
That came, well, it's been like since during all my studies, I was, a musician on the side as well. So I was really Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of vibe, like I was like, let's say, a musician at night and a student or a pharmacist later on during the day. And I had to solve this problem because it was really like, you don't know where to stand. You want to be a rock star. I mean, rock star. You want to be living of music. You want to be on stage. Stage, it's like being an actor, you're someone else. You become someone else, and it's the feeling of it is just incredible. And so yeah, and I didn't know where to stand, like being in the reality or being someone else. So I thought that fragrance was right in the middle, with chemistry mixing with music, telling stories via chemistry, basically.
I love that. I love that you found like an extreme on one side, an extreme on the other side, and then a happy medium in the middle. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's like two complete opposite worlds, but it's actually, they are not that opposite, like fragrance, you speak with notes as well. And so it's there is a lot of people that used to work with music. You have a lot of them that actually work with fragrance.
Cool. The next question I have is, moving to London to fully devote to music. You said, my biggest fear was that I'd turn 40 and not be a musician. Mine too. I started to I've been making music, like I said, since I was 20. And just last year, I finally put a few tracks up on Spotify. But was it scary for you to then, at that time, like devote everything to music? Like, were your dreams fulfilled taking that plunge?
Yeah, to me, the nightmare would have been not to try and live with regret after, having a life of frustrations. But when I dropped my job to become a musician, it's like, I don't think I've ever been that happy and, feeling like a flower that opens, basically, you're living, you have you don't have to think about nothing except music, which for me was the dream. Yeah,
that's my dream too. Being adults these days, it's like, well, I have my kid and I have my job, but I have my music and I have my girlfriend, I have my family. That's like, there's a lot of other things as we get older to focus on. But I think same as you, music's still for me every day, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, there's just something playing around, any kind of music.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And I have, even when I work, because I'm a bit of a, hyperactive, so I need to do something and then do something else and do something and change. And so I always go back to my guitar, 10 minutes, go back to my emails or to whatever I'm doing, boards and things, go back to my guitar, so I always have an instrument. And if I don't have an instrument, I just play with my finger, drums or whatever. But music is always here. And of course, I'm listening to music while I work. So it's always here, always.
Yeah. You mentioned possibly regretting that part of your life, not going into devoting your, some of your life to music. Did you have that same passion for making your own brand too? Like, oh, if I don't do this and take the chance and make my own brand, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. Was it the same for that?
It's exactly the same, actually. And then I realized later that what was important for me was not to be a musician, but to be creative. And as long as I get to create fragrance, music, I find even a lot of like pleasure, like writing stories, and as long as I have creativity, I'm happy.
Yeah, me. I think you and I were cut from the same cloth. I'm the same. I would either
Yeah,
like be writing poetry or doing paintings or sketching or even like making Legos with my son. As long as I'm doing something
exactly.
creative, yeah, my life's pretty good.
Yes,
Cool.
yes.
Let's go into a little bit of your background as a pharmacist. You got hired at a British American pharmacy. I think I read a little bit of research, but the story is you said I'm dressed like I was going to a rock and roll gig, and I think you were surprised that the interview went so well and they hired you based on your looks. But I really like that you express yourself the same way with like your clothing. Was that expression an easy transition for your band? Like that expression of just like that freedom that you have when you guys were playing music, was that expression easy for you to follow?
So yeah, I mean, the basically when I moved to London, I found myself. So I didn't have any codes to respect. I could dress as I wanted. I could have my hair like here. I could, do tattoos, do everything, because the job as a musician is just like you're free. You're free to choose who you are. You're free to. So when music was over and I got to find this job in Paris, I didn't make any concessions. I just wanted to, to keep being who I was, because I found myself and there was no way back. I couldn't come back to the person I was before. Because I felt, before I was actually frustrated, So there was no concession. So that's why, I went to the job interview exactly like I was, and it went really well. And so I just keep being who you are, and it's just the best way to achieve things.
Did you find, were there other people in that style that you were there when you started that job, or were you like kind of like the only one that looked like you did?
No, that's funny. That's funny because I didn't want that job.
Oh, really?
The music was over. I was in London, and my wife got a job in Paris. So she was like, "Okay, find a job in Paris," and we moved to Paris. And to me, it was like, I want to stay in London. I'm not ready to I wanted to find maybe another band or something. I don't know. But then I wrote I saw online, it's like the universe was sending messages, it's so strange. And I saw online that the British American pharmacy was looking for a pharmacist. So I sent an email, and even in the email, I'm like, look, I haven't worked in 5 years. I stopped being a pharmacist 5 years ago, but now I'm going to be back to Paris, and I'm looking for a job. So, I just said, what was the situation basically. And I got an answer like the same day, like, oh, great, come for an interview. And I was like, oh, shit. And
you thought they were going to say no.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Because the way I wrote, honestly, was like, I mean, you don't get a job like this,
Yeah. I was going to say that. It's like, just write an email, like, come in for an interview. Sounds like the universe is like kind of looking out for you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so then I wrote another email. I was like, look, I'm coming from London for this interview. And just so you know, I have tattoos everywhere. I have like very long hair, and I have a special style. So I just hope it's okay. And and the woman, she answered to me. She was like, "That's great. I love tattoos. I love like extravagant stuff and like."
Cool.
So it's like double shit, like And so I go to the interview, and I go like with like my black jeans with holes, like leather jacket, a hat, like jewelry, like Slash basically. And I arrive at the pharmacy, and the boss, she's like, Michael?
Yeah,
and I'm
she
like,
knew you right
yes.
away.
She's like, yeah, and she's like, I love your style.
Wow.
So then we had a discussion, and she hired me, and I worked there for a few years. Yeah.
Did she hire you on the spot that day? Or
Yeah.
did it, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That I do agree. Sometimes there are little tumblers that happen in space-time that are like, hey, this was meant to be, so we're going to make it happen.
Yes. I mean, what were the chances that, okay, I was living in London. I was speaking English. My wife is Swedish, so we speak English. I was always speaking English, and then I didn't feel like going back to a pharmacy, to a place where we speak French. And this is the British American pharmacy, so you only have tourists. So it's like American, Brazilians, and English people, and like you don't have any French people going there. But what were the chances, that I got a job where I was speaking English, and my boss was even more extravagant than me. She has like red hair and stuff.
Cool.
So yeah, it's the universe was kind with me.
Love it. How did fragrance fit into your life before you worked as a pharmacist? So we have all this time where you were in a band and a kid being young, going to school and such, and then into pharmacy before you got this job. But how much did scent come into your life before that? Were you wearing it often, or was it even a glimpse in your brain?
No, I was wearing some fragrances, but it's like since the age of like 11 years old or 12 years old when I went to my first party, my dad said, "Oh, take my perfume. You're gonna see, girls really like it." and I just put his perfume. It's Fahrenheit. I think
Fahrenheit.
it was Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I wear that to this day still. It's one of my favorites.
I don't know. Maybe I was 13. I don't remember how old I was, but basically the first scent I wear, that was Fahrenheit. But I was a teenager. I was like so young. Wearing Fahrenheit was quite like, oh.
Yeah.
But I went to the party, and I remember like everybody was like, "Oh, you smell so good! You smell so good!" And then basically, my brother was collecting small samples. He was a collector of small samples, so we had this box with like full of samples of perfume. It's like it was meant to be. We had this big box, and we were like, "Oh, we have new perfumes." And my aunt was working in a perfumery in Toulouse, in the south of France, southwest.
Oh, so you have that already in some of your family. That's cool.
Yeah, she was working, so she often sent us some fragrance or samples and stuff, that we collect. And but apart from that, I didn't have what we call like a strong passion. My passion was music. And then I discovered my passion for cosmetics during my studies because I really like the formulation and chemistry and all this.
We're going to get into that next. You say, I think there's a quote from you, fragrance is halfway between chemistry, cosmetics, music, and art. I love that. It's a wonderful kaleidoscope of all those things. How do they blend together for you? Like that's a lot of things, chemistry, cosmetics, music, and art. I can see the blend there. Like for me, it's very organic, those things, because it's my life too. But for you,
yes.
How easily do those blend together?
It just came like with my life. Basically, it's my the way I chose my path in life. It led like things lead me to music first. Music lead me to perfume, and I think the way why I was a musician was to later on create my brand, basically. It was just, one of the steps I had to go through to get to fragrance.
That's awesome.
Because without it, I wouldn't have created a fragrance brand, because there was no way I would create a brand with a fake story or with like, just marketing and stuff. I had the need of creating a brand because I had a story to tell, and like a universe that I fit in, that is like the, rock and roll aesthetic and all this. So it's a lot of me in this brand because it's a bit of my life in it.
Yeah, I love it. Do you remember the moment when you're like, okay, I think I want to start my own company and I think I want to make a fragrance brand? Do you remember when that started to come to you where you're like,
yeah, I'm
gonna really start to do this. I want this to be my life now. When did that happen?
Well, my first day at the pharmacy when I came back from London.
Oh wow! Oh yeah! Wow.
I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. Like, I need something more creative. I need to have my own business. I want to do something on my own. I didn't know it would be fragrance because it took me 3 years to put things together. Or maybe more. It took me 4 years to put things together and realize, like, yes, I want to do a fragrance brand. So, but the first day, I didn't really enjoy my job as a pharmacist. I loved my studies. I loved the knowledge because in France, we study like very, very deeply, a bit like doctors, it's very, it's a lot of anatomy, physiology, chemistry, a lot of like things. And we study for like 6 or 7 years, So the studies were really interesting, but the job itself as a pharmacist, in a city, it's nothing crazy.
Yeah. Or yeah.
I mean, even though crazy stuff happen in pharmacies, but
lots of rock and roll parties in pharmacies happening.
No, not this. No, but you have some, like emergency stuff, people.
Totally.
You have some like disease there, so it's sometimes it can be a bit stressful, but most of the time, you just sell paracetamol.
Yeah, you mentioned maybe 3 or 4 years from having the idea to actually kicking the brand off. Were you working during that time? Question 1.
Yeah.
And then question 2, if weren't working, what else were you doing in that time to build up the brand? Like, were you just getting capital? Were you getting ideas? Were you like getting employees? What was happening in that time?
No, I was working all the time, actually. I was working all the time. And with having in my mind the idea that this won't be forever, I will end up doing my own thing. But I was also trying to get some new music on the side. The dream was not over to be a musician. So I tried to do some things, but that didn't work out. It's like the magic was gone, So I felt it, and then I knew I had to put all my energy into creating my own company.
Yeah. Was that a kind of a bittersweet feeling to know that you're going to do a new passion, but the old one was gone?
At the beginning, but not when I started to create my company. But this was just when I felt the magic was gone. I was just a musician. I was just a pharmacist again. And music-wise, I was not as creative as I was in London. I felt it was not the same vibe, it was not the same inspiration. When you have a full-time job, especially a job that is so different from music, pharmacist, it's very,
totally.
square. And, so then you come late in the evening, and then you have to create music while you're tired, and it's that didn't work out. So here I felt really frustrated. But that was before once I started to have the idea of creating my fragrance brand, then I was so excited. I was just like the happiest. And I'm very happy that I've been a pharmacist, because without it, I wouldn't have created my brand.
You have all that background. It seems like it fit naturally. Like you had your history of music, you went to pharmacy, you studied all those things in chemistry, and all of a sudden, like, hey, I have all the knowledge now to do this.
Exactly. That's why I like to say it's the universe that took me there, because and it's funny because first I wanted to be a vet, but the vet school, in France, the vet school is very, very hard to get in. You need to have like crazy grades, but I didn't have those grades. I had good grades, but not good enough to be in the. And then it's a friend of mine, my best friend. He was like, "You love chemistry and biology. Come with me to pharmacy school." I was like, yeah, okay. So I just went there, and so it's funny how you choose your the things in life that can lead you somewhere. If I wouldn't have chosen this, maybe maybe I would be a vet with a laser jacket somewhere.
Yeah, cool. So, let's talk about Room 1015 a little bit. As we all know, that's the name of your brand. What the brand stands for counterculture. We're the black sheep of the perfumery business. We don't do things by the book. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you disrupt the industry? What waves do you think you and your brand cause within the perfume industry?
Well, the thing is, I don't want to be pretentious and say that I'm doing waves in the industry, but you have a lot of classic things in the perfumery and everything. It's a war between brands. Competition and stuff. And I feel I don't have this kind of competition with anyone. I mean, except after me, some brands came, with music and stuff, but I don't really, first, I don't really care. So
good.
In that way, I am a bit of the black sheep of the perfumery. Because I don't care about others, what they do. I generally also don't plan, I don't try to be a marketing guy and try to, to see just the dollars. I just create stories, and the stories give perfumes. And I think that's why I'm different from the others, I work very differently. I work with the heart, with passion, and just like with music, I don't expect to make music, like big money with music. I just go do my stuff, and if money comes, So it's not, and if it doesn't, but at least I get to be creative.
Yeah, that's the true meaning, I think, of being creative is you don't do it for the money, you do it for the passion of creativity.
That's what it is to be an artist. It's just like, and it's not pretentious to say, I'm an artist. Some people could be like, you pretentious, but it's not. It's just a way of living. You're a dreamer, an artist. It is what it is, and money can be a part of it or not. And I don't think that's the most important.
Yeah, cool. Let's move on. We talk about Room 1015, and some of your fragrances have a sense of nostalgic freedom. I love that line. Describe what visual comes to mind for you when you use those words. What does that mean for you, sense of nostalgic freedom?
So basically, it's funny because sense of nostalgic freedom, it's a friend of mine that found this sentence. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. In all my fragrances, most of my fragrances, I like to put patchouli to get back to the 70s era.
Yeah, I love it.
Even though the perfume can be inspired by the 90s or the 80s, or I always put, I enjoy to put a bit of patchouli. And it's funny because I was born in 1978, so I didn't know the 70s. And maybe it's actually better because I picture it with a romantic kind of view, I make it, in my mind, I make it probably very different from what it was in real, So, to me, it's like, it's nostalgic because, often we think in the past, it's nice to remember things. It's like perfume can take you somewhere in the past. You can travel, not only to travel places, but you can travel in time with perfume. And this is, so in that way, it's like nostalgic and freedom because, okay, it's the freedom of the 70s and all this, but it's also freedom of creativity. I can create whatever I want. Perfume is it's invisible and it's personal, and it's someone will love it, someone will hate it. So I just create something that I think is great.
I love it.
And, it just comes freely. I don't have any, it's exactly like being a musician.
Yeah, cool.
You don't have any,
you're creating.
You're just free.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Creative freedom. I love that about chemistry too. Basically, there will always be a scent that hasn't been invented yet because there's so many different ways to do that with chemistry. You can invent new things by mixing all of them together. So I really love that. For me, sense of nostalgic freedom. Yeah, it does go back to the 60s as well. You mentioned patchouli. It's also my favorite note. I've been wearing it since I was 18. And we talk about memory. For me, it reminds me of one specific girl that I used to work with at a record store. I was 19 years old. I forget her name. She dressed, she was my age. She was 19, but she dressed as a hippie and she wore it every day. And whenever I put it on, I just think of that person. But it's for me, it's 30 years ago. But that's how much sense can really bring you back to memory. And for me, patchouli still has a sense of freedom, nostalgia, a little bit of that hippie area, that 60s vibe.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about choices you made around branding, the story of Room 1015. I think anyone who knows you knows sort of a little bit about that story. I've done my research and know it as well. I read a lot about the Hyatt House. Give us a quick background for those who don't know on the hotel. And then what was it that drew you to that specific room? Because I know in the Hyatt House, there's different rooms that different people stayed in that mean different things. But why did you choose that one? So give us a little bit of history on the brand name for that room, and then tell us why you chose that room.
Yeah. So when I knew I wanted to create a fragrance brand, I started to write stories and to develop the first scents, the first collection. But I needed a name for the brand, and it's like finding a name for a band. You need a name that has either a strong meaning, either something that doesn't mean anything, but that sounds nice, something that is catchy. So, and I wanted something, a bit like catchy with a story. I wanted a story, and I remember I was in bed. I was not sleeping because I couldn't sleep because I was too excited about, like the fragrances I was working on.
Yeah.
And I just started to think like, okay, I need a name, something like, I love rock and roll and stuff. So what could it be? And I started to think about Jim Morrison. And I was like, yeah, he died in a hotel. And then when I thought about hotel, I was like, yes, I'm gonna try to look for hotel rooms, like famous hotel rooms. So I woke up from the bed, went to the living room, computer, Google, and I started to make some research. And then I wrote, the sentence that I wrote was most trashed hotel room in history,
Yeah.
So, and there comes some like stuff with like the most trashed hotel room in history of rock and roll music. And I was like, yes, that's it.
Nice.
And then I started to read, and then I come across the room 1015, and immediately that I saw this room 1015, I was like, that's it. It's the room 1015. And I like the sound of 1015 because you don't have to say room, you can say 1015. And basically, it's the room from which Keith Richards has thrown a TV, through the balcony. It was at the Hyatt Hotel in California. It was the nickname of this hotel was the Riot House.
Riot House, yeah, Continental Hyatt House.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a lot of parties, a lot of things happening there, and everybody was going there, from Jim Morrison to the Who, the Rolling Stones, like everybody, and they were trashing the rooms, of course. Because room trashing was very popular in the 70s
yeah.
and 80s.
Television's boring anyway. Just make sure there ain't nobody there. We come a little bit this way so we make sure we hit the garbage area. That's it, man. Alright. Okay, tell us when. Okay. Okay. Now.
So yeah, the hotel is very famous for that, and I fell in love with the name. I really like the name, and I connected with it, with my background of a musician, and then I started to play with imagery and logo and all this, and I wanted to give a clean logo. That's why you have something quite clean, because I'm a pharmacist, with a trashy name because I'm a rock musician.
Yeah, cool. I was going to talk about that. The logo represents both your rock and roll trashy side and the pharmacist clean side. As a designer, I also love things that can be a metaphor for multiple feelings and emotions. So I love that because I love that like the typeface and the box around your logo is like very beautiful and very timeless and classic.
It's very simple.
Yeah.
It's simple, it's basic, and it's clean.
Yeah, I love it. Let's move on to the connection of 70s and 80s music to all of your fragrances. Each fragrance is like a song. I love this concept so much because I'm a big, music lover myself. I'd love to name a few bands for you, and you tell me what feeling or emotion or scent comes to mind as soon as I name them. And actually, I'm going to name bands, but the first place I'm going to name is a place that most people may know. So what do you think CBGB smelled like? Had you ever been there before?
No, I haven't been, but I would have loved to get there. But to me, CBGB, it sounds like all the pubs, the shit pubs that I've played in when I was in my at the beginning of my band or my hardcore band before. It just smelled like wet wood and alcohol, like whiskey and beer, and with the sticky stage.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, it's just, but it's kind of like this smell of the wet wood and the whiskey and all this.
Yeah, I miss that with everything going on in the world right now. I haven't been to a show in a long time, but Continental Hyatt House is on the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles, and I went to many shows there at the Whiskey and at the Roxy, and that spilt beer on the floor, the sweat of everyone kind of like mosh pit together. I wonder if anyone or you could create a scent that reminds me of being in the center of that mosh pit and just like drenched with sweat, seeing your favorite band.
That would be really a challenge, this, because I think there is some candles and stuff that smells like, but if you want the club, like,
yeah,
that's you need to be familiar with it, because it's like, when you're a boxer, you like the smell of the place. There is a special smell in, like, when you do karate or box and stuff. And the musicians also, they are with this smell, like everywhere we play, it smells the stage. There's always alcohol on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
So it smells the wet wood. It smells like strange.
Nice.
But we love this, when it's just beautiful. Yeah.
Another band. Tell me the first scent or smells you think of when I say Sonic Youth.
Sonic Youth, what could it be? I would go for a minimalist thing, because, like something simple. I mean, it has nothing to do, but you would have said Minor Threat. I would have said something like this too, something very minimalistic, something that doesn't smell too much. I don't know, like a light ambroxan, maybe something very like, nice. I can't smell really ambroxan. So I'm like, maybe ambroxan.
What about the Zombies, the band The Zombies from the 60s? What do they smell like?
I love that. I love the Zombies.
Me too.
The Zombies, I think about the song Bus Stop. So I would say something a bit romantic. So like a little rose with the smell of rain.
Yeah, I love
like
it.
This.
Very nice. Yeah, that album Odyssey and Oracle is like one of my favorite albums they made. It's beautiful.
So cool.
What about Run DMC? What do you think of Streets of New York in the 80s sounded like?
Yeah, that's cool. Run DMC, I would say concrete and leather.
Yeah, nice. Ooh,
yeah.
I love that. No one's ever said the smell of concrete. I love that. That's cool.
Yes.
Definitely there's a smell too when you have water on concrete. That smell is very...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a bit, when the rain is going to come, you feel there is something,
Yeah. Last one, Nirvana. What images come up for smell?
Nirvana, it smells like, of course, leather, gin, and bubble gum.
Yeah, yeah. Totally right. Yeah.
But I did a fragrance actually, but I stopped it because the formula, I was not happy with the formula, so it's gonna be reformulated. It's a fragrance inspired by the 90s, so it was called Power Ballad. But in the imagery was very grunge, like very this era of beginning of the 90s with all these power ballads, and of course Nirvana. Everybody was dressed like Nirvana, and kissing with chewing gums and drinking gin.
I love
so
that.
It's like,
they had this like grunge mentality, but it was so accessible to everyone that you think like bubblegum, like even kids were listening to it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
Hanging out in room 1015.
All right, Michael, tell me about Purple Mantra. Can we talk about it?
So, I've done a lot of scents inspired by music, by psychedelic music, by the guitar smell. I've done the tattoos, and then I've been more a bit more lifestyle with the cannabis that was launched in 2021. Because cannabis is a huge part of counterculture, and more I like to go not only music but more counterculture, because it's music is part of counterculture, and
100%.
It's really more where I want to take the brand, with the not only music, but it will always be marketed with music. There will always be a track with each scent. And this time I got inspired by Transcendental Meditation. So the idea was to speak about Transcendental Meditation because I did the drug last year with the cannabis scent. So that was about cannabis. And now what if we drop cannabis to get our creativity boosted? And in the 60s, bands like the Beatles or Donovan went to India to do actually Transcendental Meditation.
With the Maharishi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they are the ones who imported basically Transcendental Meditation to Europe. And from this point, it started to be a trend about it, like a lot of people were like dropping the LSD, dropping the drugs to get into Transcendental Meditation. So the perfume is actually made with a lot of natural ingredients, that are like calming. So you have like, lavender, you have, how do we say marjolaine in English? Majoram, I think we say. So yeah, you have like a clary sage. So there is this like mystic vibe and relaxing vibe at the same time.
Love it.
It's like white flowers, clary sage, lavender, and incense. So it's very mystic and spiritual and all this. And the idea is to feel relaxed, listen to the music track that goes with it, feel relaxed, and try to be creative. Once you smell, you kind of open something.
Yeah, I love that. I'll put it on. I can be like one with the universe.
Focus your mind on the transcendental voice within. Hear it merging with your own senses. Breathe it in, and it is released. Slow and deep inhaling of the invisible. It fills your aura with iridescent light. The unexpected blast of incense purifies your thoughts. The purple scent of lavender touches your senses, calming the nervous system. All unnecessary distractions are slowly washed away. Your mind is a blank page, ready for a revelation.
Let's we were talking about the other ingredients and other fragrances that you have. Let's get a little bit of story behind a couple of them. Tell me electric wood. What's the story behind that scent?
Yeah, so electric wood was the first scent that I wanted to launch. It was actually the most important scent for me because it's inspired by the smell of a guitar. But it's not only inspired by the smell of a guitar. It's also the inspiration is from the first time I got the time when I got my first guitar. Because as I said, I wanted to play guitar since the age of 6, but my parents, they waited a bit more and bought me a guitar when I was like 11. And the thing is, by 11, I was already a massive fan of, Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith and all this. And they were all playing with Gibson. And my dad was in California for, he was a fashion designer. He was traveling a lot and he was in California. And he's calling me, and he's like, "Hey, Mike, there is like guitar stores here. It's crazy. They're like so big. It's so many guitars. And you know what? They have like all the Gibsons and stuff." I know there was no internet at this time, and so he could just describe it to me. He couldn't even send me a picture because, the camera I had was like Polaroid or whatever. And, so, I was like, "Oh yeah, really? Wow. You're so lucky," and all this. And, then after he comes back 2 weeks later with a present and it was a Gibson.
Wow.
So, I just cried and I was like, so happy. And the thing is when I opened the case the guitar was amazing, but it's the first time I smelled an open case of a guitar case. And, it smells like the wood, the varnish, especially the varnish for the Gibson, it's really like a special scented varnish. And the metallic strings, the fur, the synthetic fur of inside the case.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was just like amazed. It was like an addiction to it. And this is really like my first big scent experience. And it has never left me. It's always with me. Every time I buy a new guitar, it's a pleasure to open it and to, the full room smells like it after when the case is open. So it's a real, it's a big part of me. It's a big part of my inspiration. So I wanted to pay a tribute to
beautiful
to this.
What a beautiful memory that will be with you for the rest of your life. Just like one
Yeah,
of those
yeah,
things
yeah,
that
yeah.
happened at youth, and it will just like stick in your soul forever. I love that.
Yeah. That's I think I reached the top of the of the pleasure that day. I got my first. It was a Gibson standard black one,
Mm,
and it's just like then I could finally do like Slash and
yeah.
and Joe Perry and
Yeah.
everybody, you know.
Nice. What
So-
about Cherry Punk? Tell us a little bit about that scent.
Yeah. So I wanted to pay a tribute to the punk aesthetic. Not necessarily the punk music, but really the punk aesthetic, you know, the Vivienne Westwood era. You know, how cool were the Ramones, for example, you know, like, and when you think punk, of course, you think like the London punks, you know, with the leather jacket and the red hair, you know. So that's why the bottle is red actually, and the top is black. It's to have these kind of colors that you used to have in the 80s, the 70s, 80s with the punks in London. But so I wanted to do something a bit glamour. I didn't want to have something minimalistic. We are not. I didn't want to have something too dirty. It was more like the aesthetic and the fashion of punk. Which was a big part of punk, actually, fashion.
Totally.
Getting inspired by Vivienne Westwood and the shops she used to have in London called Sex. So we worked, of course, with leather, like because of the leather jacket, with a bit of alcohol kind of vibe, you know, like it smells a bit of alcohol, and the cherry. We chose the cherry because of mainly I wanted to work with a fruit, but I thought a fruit didn't have its place in the collection because, you know, fruit, rock and roll, you know, it doesn't. Yeah, so flower, yes, because flower power and all this.
Yeah,
fruits, I was not sure, and then we got inspired by the colors, really. It was really part of a mood board, and the cherry came up, and I had a friend that had a tattoo with a cherry here. And I was like, yeah, cherry and punk sounds great. And then I was like, cherry punk. So we worked like this, really to give a glamour feel to the punk era. Yeah. So, yeah, and it's actually a perfume that really people really enjoy, and I'm really, really happy.
Yeah, it's
and
beautiful
it's patchouli, of course, because, you know, to go back to that era,
yeah,
you need to go back somehow, and patchouli is such a great way to go back.
Yeah, the whole look and feel of that bottle with the red and the black, just it really stands out. There's something very attractive about it, and of course, there's also a famous song "Cherry Bomb," so that's what like kind of my brain went to that too. So. Cherry has a little bit of history with rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, but I mean, you know, it's I mean, also with the tattoos, you know, how many people have cherries tattooed, you know, but I'm really happy with this scent, and it's amazing how people really love it. So the reviews and all these are really, really cool and
beautiful.
So that's
congrats.
Super cool.
I love it.
Opens the Westwood shop at Kings Road. We would wait for an hour just to see her twirling around with the new vinyl records, the seditionary violet and a spray-painted leather jacket. Lost in a sweet reverie, her lipstick burns your skin. The jasmine white frills of her blouse gives you the hint of romance. But don't get it wrong. Maybe this sex is for the rebels, but it still sells. £7 for the pistols, no coins please. God save the Queen. 430 Kings Road, London. This is where it all begins. Cool kids with bleached hair swapping rare vinyl records. Distressed denim, hand-painted leather, latex, tartans, prints that would make your parents blush and lock you in the house for the whole summer. Did punk invent fashion, or fashion invented punk?
How did music open up possibilities for you? I think a quote from you is, "Music taught me that life is not a straight line." I love that line. How did those opportunities take you on the path to creating your own brand and inventing these smells? Like, it sounds like it happened all a bit organically. We're talking about the universe making all these steps for you, like being a musician, then being a pharmacist, and then starting your brand. You make it sound very dreamy and very magical, this process you've done. But I imagine it's been a little bit of hard work for you.
Well, now it sounds dreamy and magical and all this because I look back at it. But of course, nothing was super easy. Only the study for 7 years, chemistry, biology, and it's not like it's not easy. And working in a place that you don't like, it's not easy. Being even a musician in London is not easy. So it is, no, of course, but life is not easy. So it's a lot of ups and down. And it's just, but you have then, when you have enough, it's been a few years, so I can look back, and what you keep from it is just the good stuff.
All the good things.
So the good stuff is, I was a pharmacist in a place called the British American Pharmacy. I played music. I moved to London. I created a brand. It's cool. But of course, you have to, there's a lot of drama also. It's not easy. It's not, but everybody experienced this.
But what a magical thing. Like you got to experience music for a long time. You got to experience school and learn, and then you built your own brand and it's successful, like your life looking back, and you have a long way to go still, but you're like, hey, I got to live my passions and I've got to be creative. It's a wonderful thing that you've done. I mean,
I go from the concept that we only have one life. So I want to fulfill it with everything I can. And I like to have several lives in one life. So I've been a musician, I've been a pharmacist. Now I'm a perfume maker. Maybe I will be I don't know, a painter. I have no idea of writer. Maybe not a writer because I don't write so good. But maybe I'll be something else. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's one of my last questions about where do you see yourself soon, but we'll get to that soon. We're almost at the end here. One of the questions that was really intriguing me is, how long does it take for you to be done with the fragrance, for you to say, like, now this is finished? I think with chemistry, there can be so many things that you can put into a scent and just get all these different smells. Can you give us a little bit of background into, like, when you start the process to when you finish, how long does that take? And then second, when do you know, like, now we're done, I perfected it?
Yeah. It's exactly like writing a music track. In music, when you write a track and it takes 2 hours, generally it's a hit. But it's like, because it flows, it goes like, it's evident. It's an evidence. It goes, oh wow, it's done. 2 hours, I wrote it. Then of course you need to work on it a little bit, but sometimes you find, one chorus, one verse, and like you find the base of the song like so fast. And often it's your best song. While you work more and more and more on something, then you cannot get lost. You're like, so I try not to get lost for sure. But generally, it's hard to say because some scents I work on, it can take like 1 month, and some others, it can take like, I don't know, like 14 tryouts, so it can take like a year or more. Like, it depends. It's very, it depends also with which perfumer I'm working, because I'm working with several perfumers. So I create the mood boards, I create the story, I say what ingredients I would like to have, what notes I would like to have. And from there, the perfumer can work around it and send me some first shots. And, it's a real process. So sometimes I can be happy with the first thing. Sometimes I need 1 or 2 more, but mainly it's exactly like a track. You feel it with your heart. You feel it with there is something happening, an excitement that comes. It's like when you know your stuff, if you know music, if you know what could be a good perfume, it. It's just like,
that's cool.
And generally, I don't try to have too many people smell it, because otherwise I would have too many opinions, and I don't want to get lost.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about that? How many people are in the process that you share the smell with to get their opinions?
It's just a few people.
Yeah.
It's just a few people.
Okay, cool.
It's like basically the perfumer, me, maybe some friends, my wife. But I have a tendency to trust my guts, basically, because it's like cherry punk people were like even some perfumers that I met, they were smelling it, or even like fragrance bloggers that I met, they smelled it before it was launched, just a little test. And they were like, no, just maybe drop the cherry. And I was like, nope.
No,
yeah. And I was like, no, no. And I was right, because now cherry punk is like, it's the, I say it's the bestseller of Room 1015. So, basically I try I trust myself. It's like, when you're a musician, you need to trust yourself, you need to know what you're doing. And then
I love that.
It flows.
I love that from a music point of view, when you play something or create something, it comes from inside. It sounds like you're taking the same approach to fragrance. You're just trusting what you feel inside.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Exactly. And I have actually the same feeling, the same excitement when I work on a perfume, or when I used to work on tracks, on music. It's the same, like super excitement stuff that I can't sleep. I'm like thinking of it, like how to improve it. It's crazy. So it's really, a creative process that is very close to music, I guess.
Beautiful. Cool. Moving on to the last question. Let's talk about the future of the brand. In an era of almost an overdose of social media and just sometimes an overwhelming plethora of new technology, how does Room 1015 keep that sense of nostalgic freedom as we move forward into the next couple of years? How do you get that sense of that feeling, but things are going so digital,
I think it's amazing that we go more and more digital, and I think it's just because nostalgia can be. There's not only the 70s; it can be the nostalgia of last week.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's. I think it's amazing, and I can't wait to see how we can develop fragrances in the metaverse.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know. I don't really know. I don't really know, but it's like only the online market for now is doing really well, and it's people are changing the way they're consuming, so people are going to change the way they approach fragrance, and I don't really know how it's gonna come, but I'm really excited that things are becoming more and more modern, and only working with Scentbird, for example. This is such a great way for people to discover fragrances, and like Room 1015 get like a lot of followers from US thanks to it. So it's a really cool. I think brands need of course they need the net now, and it's like you can't go backward,
I love that you're embracing where we're going as part of just like, this is just where humans are going. I'm going to go along with it, and I'm going to take my brand there. When we think about metaverse, my son and I, we have an Oculus, so I thought there's going to be attachments as you walk through a forest to the ocean, and it's going to like spray different things so you can be there. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And I can't wait. We will look at in a few years, we will look at the websites that we have now. You're just flat like this, like, okay. Because in a few years, you will be able with your glasses to go in the store and like see the stores and give a real identity to a store, in the metaverse. And
totally.
I think this is so cool, and I can't wait for it.
And going back to that question about if you're going to be a writer or a painter, I think you're in your early 40s, like myself. Where do you see yourself at 60 in the next 20 years? What do you think you'll be doing?
60. I think. Well, that's. I think I'll still be a musician.
Yeah, good. Always.
Yes, and I think I don't know. Maybe I will be the manager of my kid because my kid wants to be a footballer. So maybe I'll be his manager. Cool. I don't know. I have no idea.
Love that.
And my other kid, he wants to be, what does he want to be? One is doing karate, one is doing football. I don't know. I guess I will be fully supporting my kids by then, like being behind them, helping them. And I think it's super important. Like my parents did with me, when you have your son that is a pharmacist and says, okay, bye, I want to go and live in London and have no money, but I want to be a musician.
Yeah.
Well, they said, go and live your dream.
Yeah. And look how you turned out. I mean, you're super successful. You're super passionate. You're super creative. You seem like you've been able to have an amazing, really interesting, exciting life based on just following your dreams.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, that's what life is about, is to learn things and to have experiences. And that's all, a good or a bad experience. But life is about this only. It's just an experience.
Yeah, I agree. I also agree with you. Like we only have this one life. So like live each day is the gift that it is. Well, Michael, we've had such a great time chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot for having me. And yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, cool. See you soon.
See you.
All right.
Peace out.